Midnight, New Delhi Railway Station, June 1996. An 84-year-old man sits on a bench on platform 5, wrapped in a hospital blanket, watched by 4 armed escorts. He is dying, according to his own lawyers. He's also carrying a documented sentence of 113 years across more than 100 criminal cases. 2 of his guards step away to return a borrowed wheelchair to platform 1. Standard procedure. Under 2 minutes. When they come back, the bench is empty. So is the rest of his life, as far as any Indian court would ever know for certain again. Before that platform, he was Mithlesh Kumar Shrivastava, a railway station master's son from a village in Bihar. History would remember him under a different name. Hindi mein wo naam ban gaya ek master con artist ka. What follows isn't one scam. It's 6 decades, 8 states, and a body of prison sentences longer than most lifetimes. The first forgery was small. In the early 1930s, still a teenager in Bihar, he skimmed 1,000 rupees off a neighbor's bank draft. He ran to Calcutta. He enrolled in a commerce degree and took work as a stockbroker, a legitimate cover for a very illegitimate set of instincts. By 1937, police caught him trying to walk off with 9 tons of stolen freight steel. That became his first official record. It would not be his last or his 100th. For a short stretch in the late 1930s, he drugged sex workers to rob them of jewelry and cash. He dropped the method fast, too risky, too traceable. What replaced it? Built his entire career. Not force, but paperwork. He became, on paper and in posture, whoever a room needed him to be. A central government procurement officer, a ministry delegate, a state property liquidator. He studied the vocabulary of Indian bureaucracy the way another man might study a trade, then wore it like a uniform. Bank clerks waved him through. Industrialists took his meetings. Executives connected to the Tata, Birla, and Reliance business houses reportedly sat across from him listening to a fabricated pitch for a government contract, never once asking to see real credentials. None of it worked without paper. He had learned to copy handwriting as a boy in Bihar, and that skill matured into something close to a trade of its own. Carved government seals, forged ministry letterheads, fabricated shipping releases, counterfeit bank drafts. Each document existed for exactly as long as it needed to. Every man needs a fresh name once the old one gets flagged. Over the decades, investigators would eventually attach more than 50 aliases to him, spread across 8 states with no shared police database to connect them. A forged draft cashed in one jurisdiction meant nothing to a clerk 3 states away. He wasn't just outrunning the police, he was outrunning the paperwork that would have let one province recognize what another already knew. This is also where the legend gets ahead of the record. Popular accounts credit him with selling the Taj Mahal 3 times, the Red Fort twice, even Parliament House itself, walking foreign buyers past palace guards on staged tours, collecting cash for deeds to monuments that were never his to sell. Modern estimates put the real-world value of those monuments north of $1 billion. No surviving property deed backs any of the sales up. What the court files do confirm is simpler, and in its own way just as bold. A man who convinced state banks and national companies that he was exactly who his paperwork said he was. The clearest documented case is a bank job, not a monument. In the 1950s, Natwarlal siphoned 6.5 lakh rupees out of Punjab National Bank using forged railway freight bills and invoices for rice shipments that didn't exist. The trick was procedural, not dramatic. He presented paperwork claiming grain was moving by rail. The bank released funds against that paperwork, the way it did every day for real shipments. His shipments were never on the tracks. The monument frauds, were they documented at all, worked on the same logic, scaled up. Approach a buyer as a government liquidator. Walk them past security using nothing but confidence and a title. Hand over a forged deed, collect a fee dressed up as an official administrative charge, clear the money, and disappear under a new name before the buyer ever tried to register the property, which was the only moment the forgery would show itself. Paper eventually meets paper. In the Punjab National Bank case, an audit matched his freight bills against the actual freight cars on the actual tracks. The cars didn't exist. Neither did the shipments. Police followed the mismatch straight back to him. Even caught, he was rarely caught for long. With no central police database linking one state's arrest record to another's, a recapture in one jurisdiction rarely traveled with him to the next. Officers would transfer him between states to face separate charges. In every transfer was another hallway, another van, another chance. It wasn't the last mismatch that would catch up with him. It also wasn't the first time he'd already planned his way out of a cell before anyone came looking. By 1957, sitting in Kanpur District Jail, he'd arranged for a full police sub-inspector's uniform to be smuggled to his cell. He offered the guards a trunk packed with what looked like 5 lakh rupees in cash. Dressed as an inspecting officer, he walked out the front gate. Nobody stopped a uniform. The trunk he left behind was full of counterfeit notes. Someone burned the leftover bills in the guardhouse before anybody thought to ask why. As banking systems modernized through the 1960s and 70s, fake drafts started getting flagged before he could clear a second count. The forger who'd once outpaced the paperwork was now racing a bureaucracy that was finally starting to catch up. Which brings the story back to that platform in 1996. 84 years old, wheelchair-bound, wanted on a sentence of well over a century, Natwarlal let his own escort hand-deliver a wheelchair to the wrong end of the station and used the 2 minutes that bought him to disappear into the crowd. No arrest followed. Not one in the years after. His case sat open until 2009, when his defense lawyer walked into a Kanpur courtroom and asked the magistrate to drop more than 100 pending charges. His client, the lawyer said, had died 4 days earlier at 97, leaving behind a will dated 2004. No body was produced. No post-mortem was filed. The court closed the cases anyway, on the lawyer's word alone. It wasn't even the first time someone had claimed his death. In the late 1990s, his brother had told Bihar courts that Natwarlal died in 1996, not long after vanishing from that platform, and that he personally cremated him in Ranchi. That claim also came with no certificate. 2 deaths, 12 years apart, neither one provable, which means, on paper, Mithlesh Kumar Shrivastava is still, technically, at large. Police who dealt with him directly weren't fooled by his own legend. Varanasi Inspector Arvind Jain, interviewed in 1987, called him amazingly intelligent, doubted the poverty, doubted the generosity, and said investigators needed to study the man's past more closely. A jail superintendent who watched him vanish in 1996 offered an even shorter verdict years later. The last we saw of him was on June 24th, 1996. Count it up, and the record is almost absurd on its own terms. Over 100 cases, 8 prison escapes, successful, across a career that started under the British and ended under a democratic republic that still couldn't hold him. A sentence total past a century, served in pieces adding up to less than 20 years behind bars. His name outlived his case file. In Hindi, Natwarlal became shorthand for a master fraudster, a word people still reach for decades after the man who earned it disappeared. Bollywood told his story twice, once in 1979 and again in 2014. He even tried suing the first film's producers for getting the details wrong, which is its own kind of joke. In 2011, Residents of his home village in Bihar proposed a statue on the site of his demolished family house. None of that settles anything. No verified death. No recovered body. No final arrest. The wheelchair is still the last confirmed fact anyone has.